My grandparents cut me out of their will because I refused to study economics as they wanted, so I set a trap that threw their world into chaos. I am a 31-year-old male and have lived with my grandparents all my life. My parents passed away when I was little, so my grandparents adopted me. I am a single child, so I was probably going to go into the foster system if they hadn't taken me into their custody. I have always been grateful to them for doing that. I also acknowledge that they sacrificed a lot to raise me. They were pretty old when they took me home. It wasn't easy for them to raise a small kid, but they still took care of me. They were pretty strict, but I honestly can't complain. I owe my life to them. I don't know where I would have been if they hadn't stepped in and taken me under their wing. I don't remember my parents much, but I am sure I would have reminded them of them, which wouldn't have been easy for them either. They did treat me like their own child, but at the same time, they tried to control my life too. I don't know if that was the idea of parenting that they had or something else, but they always wanted me to do exactly what they wanted. When I was a kid, they would feed me what they thought was best for me. They clothed me in whatever they thought would be good for me. I never got to have an opinion on anything regarding myself. I wanted so many things growing up, but I was always denied because my opinion didn't matter. I never even tried to argue with them because I was so afraid that they would get rid of me or something and I wouldn't have any family at all. They weren't the most affectionate people in the world, so I was always sort of scared that they might change their mind someday and I would have to leave. It wasn't like they treated me badly or something, they were just indifferent. I think it was a generational thing. They weren't comfortable showing too much emotion. They just wanted to raise me, and in raising me, they wanted me to just listen to whatever they were saying. I was never supposed to argue, or they might get mad. I did listen to everything they had to say until I was in high school. I thought that they knew better than me, and I made every decision based on what my grandparents told me. I used to see my cousins play with their toys and have the best superhero clothes, and I used to be filled with envy. But I always told myself that my grandparents knew what they were doing, and if they weren't buying me toys, then it was for my own good. I never thought that something was wrong with their parenting style until I was older and could form an unbiased opinion. They had been controlling me all my life, and I don't know if they were doing that on purpose or if they were just wired that way. It could be a generational thing, but they got so comfortable dictating what I should and shouldn't do with my life that it started to come naturally to them. I didn't think it was a problem when I was a kid, but as I grew up, it started to grate on my nerves that I had to do everything they wanted me to. I still did it, even though I hated myself for it. I still complied with everything they asked or told me to do because I was afraid of ending up alone. It went like that for as long as I could remember, and before I knew it, I was filling out my college forms. I had always wanted to go to an art college, but of course, my grandparents had different plans. They didn't reason with me or anything, they just demanded that I study whatever they thought was good for me. That was the moment all my rage boiled over. I had been festering in it for so long that it surprised even me when I stood up to them. They were as surprised as me. I had never denied them anything before that, but I needed to take control of my life. I would have never forgiven myself if I had to listen to them in that moment. They wanted me to study economics, and I had no interest in it. I tried to tell them that I was a good artist, but they brushed me off. All my teachers had told me that I could be successful in the art world, I was that good. But nothing was good enough for my grandparents if it wasn't up to their standards. They started to keep me at a distance after I filled out all my college forms. They wanted me to know that I had made a mistake, so they ignored me for the last days of high school. I was devastated. They were the only parents I knew, and they had just cut me out of their lives like it didn't matter. They didn't even attend my graduation. I was the only one there, alone. No parent skipped their kid's graduation, and that was the day I realized that they weren't my parents. I had idealized them and thought of them as my parents, but they didn't feel the same way. If they had, they would have kept our differences aside and come to see me graduate. The longer I thought of it, the clearer it became. I was a project for them. They wanted me to be perfect and listen to everything they told me. They were nice to me when I abided by their rules, but as soon as I made a decision that they didn't agree with, they disappeared from my life. It was the saddest realization I had ever come to, but it was true nonetheless. It took me a long time after that to accept that they didn't love me or care for me like I did for them. My love was unconditional, while theirs came with a list full of conditions. They didn't talk to me after graduation. They didn't talk to me when I left for college, and they certainly didn't talk to me in the following days. I got used to it after a while. I was ultimately an orphan, so it wasn't that far-fetched that I wouldn't have any family. It was just very difficult to finally come to that conclusion after I had lived my life worshipping my grandparents for literally saving my life and giving me a home. They didn't reach out at all after I left for college. I still saw them at family gatherings because my uncles and aunts still invited me. They didn't have any beef with me or my choice of college. I was another family member to them, so they always invited me to dinner and stuff. My grandparents didn't like my presence there, but they didn't say anything either. They would usually ignore me or sometimes make small talk like we were strangers. I just hung out with my cousins and used to get out of family gatherings fairly early. I really didn't want anything to make me feel uncomfortable because of the hostility between my grandparents and me. It went on like that throughout college and graduation. I called and told them when I got my first real job, but they didn't seem very happy about it. I had been working since high school, but I got a high-paying job as an art consultant after graduation, and it was still not good enough for them. It was a huge accomplishment, but I felt sadder than ever after my phone call with my grandparents. I was still kind of holding out hope that one day they might accept me if I was successful enough or earned enough money, but I was wrong. They couldn't care less about me just because I chose to go to college of my own choice instead of theirs. That day, all my hope was killed. I knew for sure that I couldn't do anything that would make them forgive me. I had stopped calling them after that day because I knew I wasn't wanted. They never reached out on their own, so I didn't hear from them for a long time until one day I got a call. It was my grandmother asking me to come to the house. I initially thought that maybe they wanted to resolve things finally, and the prospect of that was sort of bittersweet. I did want them in my life again, but at the same time, my life was so peaceful in their absence. I felt like a horrible person just thinking about it. At the time, when I went to our house, though, I was greeted by every other member of our family, so it was a family gathering nonetheless. They had invited me after so long, so there must have been some reason. After everyone got there, my grandparents told us all they were going to announce their will to us. I mean, I knew they were getting old, but still, it was like a gut punch to hear them say that they wanted to be prepared in case something happened. I listened to them intently. I was sure I wasn't going to get anything except for the house, and I honestly didn't want anything except for the house. I needed the house because of the emotional attachment I had to it. All my aunts and uncles had their own homes, so I was confident that I was going to get the house anyway. Both my grandparents knew about my wish to inherit the house, and they had assured me a few times I would get it when I grew up. After they were done with almost all their will, they got to the house, and they completely blindsided me by giving it to my cousin instead of me. I stood on eggshells, not even knowing what to say. All my cousins were looking at me too because it was common knowledge that I was going to get the house one day. When I gained enough courage to speak, I asked my grandparents what was going on. They simply said that they wanted to give the house to their oldest grandchild, who was my cousin. I reminded them that they had promised me the house. I had so many memories there, it was the only home I ever knew. All my parents' stuff was in the attic of that house. My mother chose the furniture that was in the dining room. I held all the memories of my parents, even though I never got to know them. It held all the happy memories of my time with my grandparents before it all went sour. I told them that I wanted it, and they told me that they had made their decision. I pleaded with them to let me have it. Then they said that I could have had it if I had listened to them and chosen a respectable college for myself. They said that I had made a fool of them, so I didn't deserve to have anything of theirs. I never looked at that house as theirs, it was always ours for me. And then I understood that the oldest grandchild excuse was just that, they wanted to punish me for following my own dreams instead of their dreams for me. I lost a lot of respect for them in that moment. I had always thought that they might not be equipped to be good parents to me because of our age gap, but that day I thought for the first time that they might not be good people. I left without saying anything further because really, what was there to say after that? In the following days, though, sadness gave way to anger. I just thought that if they can't even grant me this one thing that I have always wanted, maybe I don't need them in my life after all. They are perfectly happy without any contact from me, so I needed to move on from them and accept the fact that they are perfect in my mind only. They have made it pretty clear that they don't want anything to do with me, so the only thing that linked me to them was all their bills that I had been paying for a few years. I had been taking care of everything: food, water, electricity, and medicines. Everything got delivered to their doorstep. They never talked to me about it. They probably thought that one of my uncles was doing it for them. Whatever the reason, I just couldn't be in their lives anymore. It was eating me alive. They were not good for my peace of mind, so I canceled all the payments as a first step to truly being separate from them. It took them 18 days to realize that I was the one making all the payments. I assumed they were calling me to talk about it, but when I picked up the call, they were talking to me really politely. I was confused at first, and then they said that we should be a family again because my absence was not bearable for them. It didn't even take me seconds to realize that they wanted me to pay their bills again. There was no way they wanted me back in their lives, their egos were way too big for that to happen. I told them that I would rather not be a family again and hung up. Was I wrong for not even listening to them first and assuming that they wanted money? It's been a few days after my phone call with my grandparents. I kept wondering if I was too hasty in shutting them down. Maybe they didn't want me to pay their bills and simply wanted me back in their lives. They didn't try to contact me after that one phone call for a few weeks. I was still mad at them for depriving me of that house just because I took charge of my own life. I still wanted to help them out with their bills and all, and that was the most ridiculous thing. They kicked me to the curb, and I still wanted to help them out. I just couldn't bear the fact that they might be suffering because of me. My grandfather received a generous pension after his retirement, so it wasn't like they didn't have any money, but I just wanted to be there for them in their old age. When they didn't contact me for weeks, I started to think that maybe I should call them and apologize. I honestly didn't know what I did wrong, but it was keeping me awake at night. The fact that I might be the reason our relationship would never be the same was eating me alive. I didn't call them, though. They did after a month or so. My grandmother called me and started accusing me of being heartless and selfish. I had never heard her say such cold and mean things to me, and it immediately brought tears to my eyes. I asked her what I did, and she scoffed and said that I stopped paying their bills because they wouldn't give me the house. I told her that I was sorry and that if they wanted, I could start paying their bills again. She told me that they didn't need anything from me and that she was just letting me know how ungrateful I was and that they failed at raising me. She was saying such horrible things to me, and all I could do was listen and cry. I have never been more alone than I was at that moment. So a couple of months have passed since my altercation with my grandmother, and I finally went to therapy. I have been almost depressed since everything happened, and my friends have been pushing me to try therapy, but I have been putting it off. After 2 whole months of feeling sorry for myself, I finally decided to give it a try, and it really helped. I learned a lot of things that I might have done unconsciously my whole life. My therapist told me that I had been clinging to my grandparents because I felt like I owed them something. She was right, I did feel like it. I felt like I owed them my life, so I kept going back to them even if they were hurting me emotionally. She assured me that it was their fault, not mine. Children are not supposed to feel like they owe something to their parents because they raised them. That's when I realized that I hadn't done anything out of love for them. I did everything they told me when I was a kid because I was scared they would get rid of me. Then, when I grew up, I did everything for them to pay off the debt of raising me. It was like a door opened in my mind, and I could see everything clearly. It was heartbreaking to realize that I didn't mean that much to them. I had been worshiping them for saving me and making me what I am today, but in reality, they were the ones who messed me up. I was an insecure person. I was always clinging to someone for love. I was always begging other people not to leave me because they put all those fears in me. They were bad parents to me, and they punished me for realizing that after so many years, I finally gathered enough courage to face my grandparents. They had been a constant presence in my life, even when they weren't physically there. I don't think they could say the same. I decided to talk to them face to face instead of calling. All my other family members were still inviting me to gatherings, but I haven't been to one since my grandparents announced their will. They have been worried about me, and I was getting calls from them to check in. They never took sides, and I was grateful for that. I could have easily chosen my grandparents and forgotten all about me, but it was heartwarming that they cared for me as well. So the next time my aunt invited me, I went there. It was surprising for everyone since I hadn't shown up for a while, but my grandparents' faces were frozen in shock. They probably thought they never had to see me again. I didn't come here to linger or rekindle old ties. My sole purpose was closure, a chance to face the pain head on and speak my truth to those who needed to hear it. My grandparents, perched on their pedestal of self-righteousness, had to confront the weight of their mistakes. I made it clear to my family that my visit would be brief, just long enough for a candid conversation with my grandparents. But they refused the privacy I sought. Instead, they insisted I air my grievances in front of the entire family, as if to turn my vulnerability into a public spectacle. So, I obliged, standing in the midst of relatives, my voice steady but heavy with years of pent-up hurt. I looked them in the eyes and laid bare the scars they left. "You were terrible caretakers," I said, my words slicing through the tense air. "You made me feel unworthy, like I was never enough. Every day, I lived in fear that one misstep would lead to abandonment. You made me feel like I owed you for the roof over my head, as if your care was a debt I could never repay." The room fell silent, the weight of my words settling over everyone. For a moment, they listened, their faces unreadable, and I thought, perhaps naively, that they might reflect on their actions. Then, like a dam breaking, their response erupted with venom. My grandparents didn't hesitate to tear into me, their voices sharp and unrelenting. "You did owe us," they spat, their words dripping with disdain. "Without us, you'd have been nothing, a homeless orphan, discarded like trash. You should be on your knees thanking us for taking you in instead of leaving you to rot." Their language was so cruel, so cutting, that it brought tears to the eyes of my aunts, who stood frozen, caught between shock and sorrow. They went on, claiming they had sacrificed everything for me, that they had dreams for my future, dreams I had callously rejected, branding me an ungrateful brat who defied their every effort. The barrage of their words stunned me into silence. I hadn't anticipated this level of hostility, this raw outpouring of resentment. It was as if they had been waiting for this moment to unleash years of perceived slights. Their accusations painted me as the villain in their story, a burden they had graciously borne. The room felt suffocating, the air thick with tension, as their tirade continued. They spoke of their sacrifices as if I had been an obligation, not a child deserving of love. Each word was a reminder of the emotional tightrope I had walked under their care, always one mistake away from losing their approval. But then, a shift occurred. My cousins, who had been watching the scene unfold, could no longer stay silent. They stepped in, their voices firm and protective, cutting through the venom. "That's enough," one of them said, their tone leaving no room for argument. "You don't get to talk to her like that." Their intervention was a lifeline, pulling me back from the edge of my grandparents' onslaught. I stood there, still reeling, unable to find words to counter the hostility, but grateful for the unexpected support. My cousin's defense was a reminder that I wasn't alone, that someone saw the injustice in how I had been treated. Their stand gave me the strength to hold my ground, even as the weight of the confrontation lingered in the air, unresolved but undeniably real. When I finally found the strength to speak again, I looked them in the eyes and declared that they no longer held any place in my life. Their so-called love was so steeped in conditions that it could hardly be called love anymore. They had no right to dictate every aspect of my existence and expect me to simply accept it. When they stood there, silent, offering no response, I unleashed everything I'd been holding back, every hurt, every frustration, before walking away, vowing never to see them again. After that heated confrontation with my grandparents, I chose to retreat into solitude. True to my word, I didn't reach out to them, nor did I have any intention of doing so in the future. In the months that followed, my uncles, aunts, and cousins tried to get in touch, checking in with calls and messages. I kept my responses brief, just enough to reassure them that I was okay, but I wasn't ready to engage beyond that. It took a full 8 weeks before I finally agreed to meet up with my cousins, who had been persistently inviting me to hang out. They made it clear that they were done with our grandparents after the hurtful things they'd said and done to me. Their support felt like a lifeline, a reminder that not all family ties come with strings attached. Spending time with them was refreshing. There were no expectations, no demands, just genuine care. It was an unfamiliar feeling, one I was still learning to embrace. Trusting family again, after everything, felt like navigating uncharted territory, but their warmth was slowly helping me rebuild that trust. My eldest cousin mentioned that the house, my parents' old home, was mine if I wanted it. I declined. I had already arranged for movers to collect my parents' belongings from there, but the house itself? I wanted no part of it. The more I thought about it, the more I realized it was tainted with painful memories. My grandparents weren't my parents, no matter how much I had once wished they could fill that role. They simply weren't, and holding on to a house that reminded me of them felt like clinging to a past I was ready to let go. I was finally finding peace without them in my life, and I didn't want those memories dragging me back. My therapist noticed a remarkable change in me, my demeanor, my outlook, and was thrilled with my progress. Each day, I felt lighter, as though I was breaking free from the invisible chains they had placed on me. That freedom didn't come easily. The weight of their control had lingered long after I walked away, manifesting in moments of doubt and self-reflection. But with time, therapy, and the unwavering support of my cousins, I began to see myself differently. I wasn't just the person they had tried to mold, I was someone capable of forging my own path. My cousins' unconditional acceptance was a stark contrast to the rigid expectations I'd grown up with. They didn't ask for perfection or compliance, they just wanted me to be there, to be myself. That simple act of being seen and valued for who I was, not what I could do for them, was transformative. It made me realize how much I had been shaped by the need to please others, and how liberating it was to let that go. Looking back, I see now how much I've grown. The house, once a symbol of family, now represents a chapter I've closed. I'm building new memories with people who choose to stand by me without ulterior motives. My therapist often reminds me to celebrate these small victories, the moments where I choose myself, where I set boundaries and honor them. It's a journey, and I'm still learning to navigate it, but for the first time in a long time, I feel like I'm moving forward, unburdened by the past and open to a future where I define what family means to me.